Only in America, huh? Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, it was just reported that George Zimmerman is scheduled to do a celebrity boxing match, and the opponent, or the front runner right now, is DMX. Now, there's so much stuff to say about a situation like this, I really don't even know where to start. But let's just start by saying this. For those of you guys who don't really know who George Zimmerman is, everyone knows who he is now. He is very infamous for murdering a 17-year-old unarmed kid and being acquitted for it. And now, just as I predicted after the trial, I said that this man is going to end up doing reality TV shows, and he's going to become extremely infamous and benefiting off of murdering a teenager. Now, it's not official yet, but like I said, DMX, he's the front runner, and he's jumped to the occasion of participating in this celebrity boxing match. Now, not only that, but it was actually over 15,000 people, including celebrities, that also jumped to the occasion to possibly fight George Zimmerman in this celebrity match. DMX was basically quoted saying that I'm going to beat the living F out of George Zimmerman. I'm going to break every rule in boxing to make sure I beat the F out of him, end quote. So it sounds like DMX is pretty anxious to get in the ring with George Zimmerman, I would say. You know, if I was behind this celebrity boxing match, I would title the fight Thug versus Thug. Who is the hardest thug? Okay? Because you know what's so funny about this? You look at DMX, you automatically think he's the hardest thug, right? But realistically, though, on paper, George Zimmerman is a much harder thug. He's a much harder gangbanger than even DMX. Because the things that DMX was arrested for, it looks like extremely petty stuff compared to what George Zimmerman was arrested for and what he has done. Okay, DMX, he was arrested for impersonating a police officer, possession of drugs, and, you know, little real Mickey Mouse stuff like that. I mean, we know celebrities, musicians are always busted for, you know, possession of drugs and etc. That's just part of the music industry, unfortunately. Bruno Mars was the latest guy that was busted for having drugs or possession of drugs. Rock bands, heavy metal groups and artists, rappers, you name it. All of them have been busted at one point for possession of drugs. And then it goes even further. Then you got the artists that, you know, overdosed from drugs. But, oh no, not George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman has been arrested for, you know, beating on his wife. He's a wife beater. He's also been arrested for murdering a child, a 17-year-old kid without a gun. And it's the way he did it which makes him look like a harder thug than DMX. I mean, if you really think about it, George Zimmerman is the perfect definition in the dictionary of a gangbanger, a hardcore thug. Think about it. What do thugs and gangbangers, what do? They drive around the neighborhoods looking for their enemies. Once they find them, what do they say to their enemies? They say, where are you from? What you doing over here? Right? Then they either pull out their gun, do a drive-by, or they get out the car, start a fight with the person, and then kill them. Or do a walk-by. Right? This is exactly what George Zimmerman did. George Zimmerman was driving around the hood. He was looking for his enemies, right? He spotted one of his enemies. What did he say to him? What you doing over here? Okay? Then he got out of the car, followed the kid, which he was told not to do by police operators. A fight ensued, and that fight ended in George Zimmerman shooting this kid in the chest and killing him. That is what you call a hardcore gangbanger. And then this gangbanger's followers, they find out he does this. They celebrate, and what do? They go to a black college university, go right to the front, and they spray paint on the front of the college, George Zimmerman lives. Now tell me that's not some straight gangbanging stuff right there. That's straight gangbanging stuff. This is what gangbangers do, right? You get in a war, the Bloods and Crips or the SAs or whatever, they get into a war, go back and forth, someone gets killed, and then what happens? By them celebrating, they come back over the next day, go to that hood, and they spray paint, they tag, whatever you want to call it, all over the wall. Some mess like Crips for life, Bloods for life, the Mexican Mafia, Asian boys, the Aryan Nazis, Brotherhood, whatever your gang is, that's what they go ahead and tag, right? That is called gangbanging one-on-one, okay? So with that all being said, even though the stuff that DMX talks about doing on his records and albums, George Zimmerman has actually done those things. If we're going to break this down, I think we all still believe that DMX would beat the living daylights out of George Zimmerman. For one reason is George Zimmerman, he couldn't even compete with a 17-year-old kid that he outweighed by about 50 pounds. The kid, I believe, was like 165, 170, and George Zimmerman was like 205 or 210 or something like that. All right, so he couldn't even beat up a little kid. He got beat up by the little kid, in fact. So if you can't beat up no little kid, I can't see you beating up DMX. All right? So, it's really unfortunate that someone can make a living off of murdering someone, beating up his wife, and beating up his wife's father. And I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you guys. I live in a nice neighborhood. I live in a nice neighborhood. And in neighborhoods like this, the only people you have to worry about are thugs like George Zimmerman. I worry about my kids all the time walking home from school because you could easily have a George Zimmerman just drive by, get out the car, shoot him, kill him, and be acquitted from it. Easily. When you're living in a dangerous hood, you expect to always be looking over your shoulder. You expect to put extra alarms on, in your house or on your car. You expect to take extra precautionary measures, right? But when you live in a nice neighborhood, that's the whole reason why you move into a nice neighborhood, so you don't have to worry about stuff like that. But like I said, with these new type of thugs, these new type of George Zimmerman thugs, you still have to worry. And it's very unfortunate. Acquitting a murderer like George Zimmerman, it completely sent out the wrong message. And because of that, you have people sitting at home right now saying to themselves, I'm going to be next. I'm going to be the next one to get to shoot and kill me some black dude that I can't stand, some Mexican kid that I can't stand, etc., etc. And if you don't believe me, it's already happening. There have already been multiple murders that have been compared to the George Zimmerman case, and it was considered somewhat almost of a copycat or a copycat type murder. You had one case where a 13-year-old boy got shot and killed while taking his trash out by who? By his own neighbor. His own neighbor was this old white man who had said that he had thought that the kid broke into his house previously, weeks before. That turned out to be completely a lie or unproven. It's funny how the criminals are always accusing someone else of being a criminal. Do you guys notice that? It's always the criminals accusing someone else. So anyway, after this 76-year-old man murdered this 13-year-old boy, his mom was standing out in front of her house, and then the 76-year-old man, he pointed the gun towards her, threatening to kill her as well. So the results of this case was this man, he was found guilty of first-degree murder. Then you have the case of Renisha Mcbride, a 19-year-old woman from Detroit who was involved in a bad car accident. She had no cell phone because her cell phone was dead. So she walked to one of the nearest homes, knocked on the door asking for help because, like I said, she had no cell phone or anything like that. And this suspect, without even opening the door, through a locked screen door. He got his shotgun and blew her head off straight through the screen door. Okay? And then he lied and said that his shotgun accidentally went off, which investigators have already found out that that was a lie. Then he said he thought the woman was trying to rob him. Now, the whole problem with that is how many 19-year-old women that are 5'1" do we know that have been known to knock on the front door so that they can rob someone? How often does that happen, right? So how many other people did he shoot through the screen door when they knocked on his door because he thought they were trying to rob him? And why did he think that this woman in particular was trying to rob him? He ain't never had people knock on his door before at all different times, right? She wasn't standing in his window. She wasn't peeking through the window. She wasn't, knocking on the back door of the house. She was knocking on the front door like everyone always does. Like I said before, it is always the criminals that are accusing someone else of being the criminal. It's always the guy with the gun, or I should say the thug with the gun, that's accusing the person who doesn't have a gun of being the criminal. And look at who's in court right now. Look at who's about to go to prison right now, or should go to prison. But we know how that plays out. I'm telling you, man, this is proof that gangbangers, thugs, they come in all races and colors and ages. Because this is nothing but gangbanging. Hating your enemy and wanting to kill them whenever you get a chance. That's the mentality of a gangbanger. When that man looked out of his screen door, he seen an enemy. He seen an arch rival. He knew that his gang affiliates would be proud of him when they seen him take out one of the arch rivals. He seen someone that he wanted to kill all his life. And after he seen George Zimmerman get away with it, he said, one of these days I'm going to get my opportunity. And what do you know? All of a sudden, the enemy falls right in his lap. And he ain't gotta go into no all-out war, ducking bullets, running and all of that. He could stand right in the comfort of his own house behind a secured locked screen door. When his enemy has no clue of what's going on, just asking for help. She doesn't know she's an enemy because he's not her enemy, but she didn't know that she was his enemy. That man is a gangbanger. George Zimmerman is a gangbanger. And everyone that follows them, they are followers of gangbangers. They praise these gangbangers. And then they go spray paint on the enemy's turf and celebrate their victory of doing drive-bys, doing walk-bys, doing whatever type of murder that they're proud of. So like I said, these are gangbangers, but the only difference is these are gangbangers that hate based on race. But see, these new form of racist gangbangers, they're more dangerous than a traditional gangbanger. Because like I said, with a traditional gangbanger, you know what to expect. You see a guy walking down the street with tats and teardrops on his eyes and, geared up with all type of gang attire, you know what to expect with that person. But see, this type of new gangbanger is incognito. This type of person, like I said, you could just knock on the door asking for help, in a nice neighborhood, and the guy just blows your head off. Or, your kids could just be walking down the street from school in a good neighborhood, and this random guy could just come up and blow that person's head off. See, it's like very unpredictable. See, you don't have to worry about a traditional gangbanger going to your son's elementary school and just shooting and killing all the kids at the school. That's not what traditional gangbangers do, but that's what these new form of gangbangers do. I'm out of time, guys. I'm on to the next one.